Welcome back to the Spoonie and Caregiver Live podcast with me, your host, Jordan Banderas. And before we get started, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes of the podcast. And let's go ahead and get into today's episode, shall we? Now, on today's episode, I want to talk about this because at one point, unfortunately, everyone will have excuses for not doing something that we are supposed to do, especially when it comes to taking care of ourselves or making sure that we stay healthier, you know? There's so many excuses, and I'm gonna give out a few examples, but in my case, my excuses come down to food. Now, I have talked about this a lot where I love candy. Now, the reason why I give out a lot of excuses when it comes to food, and I finally realized this in any type of junk food, literally, is that growing up, at least for me, it was hard because I was poor. We couldn't really afford the kind of candy or the kind of junk food that we can afford now. So growing up, I didn't have like a lot of candy with myself. It was junk food, but not the American version of junk food. It was more like the Mexican version of junk food, so it was completely different. Now I moved to the States. I have all this candy at my disposal where I can eat it non-stop. And my biggest excuse with that is literally I always tell myself like, well, you didn't have it growing up, so as an adult you should enjoy it. You should have a whole bag of Reese's peanut butters. You should have a whole pizza because you never had pizza before. Or I mean, when I had pizza, I could only eat like certain slices because I had to share with my mom and my brother. So now I can say to myself, just eat and overindulge. Literally, I was giving myself permission to overindulge, which in reality, obviously, that's gonna be bad in the long term because I have gained weight. I'm not gonna lie. I have gained a lot of weight. Now, after realizing this, that I was giving myself this particular excuse, I had to stop myself. And I realized that this particular excuse has been holding me back for so long. But because of the type of excuse that I used, like I made it personal. I felt like I was doing something good for me because now I was like, oh well, I didn't have this before, so I should have it now that I can afford it. But like I said, I gained weight, and obviously because of me gaining weight, I couldn't take care of my wife the way that I wanted to because I was tired. Like my joints will hurt, so it was holding me back from doing what I was supposed to. In this case, being a good caregiver and a husband. And that's why I wanted to talk about this because our excuses can hold us back. Me eating all this candy, all this junk food, obviously can cause hypertension. It can cause heart issues. It can cause diabetes. It can cause so many things that I didn't realize until I started looking into things related to food and chronic illnesses. And I have noticed that because I'm not eating so much sugar as I used to, my body doesn't hurt as much. So now I'm doing a lot better, and that's why I think that sometimes our excuses can hold us back without us realizing it because we made it personal. We made that particular excuse personal. Like in my case, I said this, I said to myself like, oh, you didn't have this before, so you can have it now. But I see a lot of people like my wife. She does the same thing with Diet Coke. Like Diet Coke, diet sodas. The research shows diet sodas are bad for you. She tells me I can't stop because I had always had soda since I was little. So pretty much it's an addiction. It's kind of like her overindulgence. She overindulged in Diet Coke, which, like I said, is bad for you. So that's holding her back because one of the things that I have found is that sometimes, depending on your body, or how your body takes the whatever you're drinking or eating, it can cause inflammation. And obviously my wife has a lot of inflammation due to her fibromyalgia. Now, if this is holding you back, if you feel like something is holding you back and it's an excuse, we need to stop giving into our excuses. Now, that's the hardest part. Why? Because sometimes our excuses are valid. I completely, or actually, our excuses are totally valid because we believe that it's valid. So it doesn't matter what anybody else says in that situation. It doesn't really matter what I say in regards to your excuses, because your excuses to you are valid. Nobody is going to force you to break them until you see the reason to break out of those excuses. Like in my case, my situation is like, okay, I'm gaining weight, I'm gaining weight, I'm gaining all this fat, which obviously is not bad, but because I have a small frame, I felt so heavy. Even though I was only 180 pounds, I still felt so heavy and my joints started to hurt. Now that I went down on weight, I'm like, I feel a lot better. So it's helping me to break out of those particular excuses, because in the end, I'm the one that's going to end up suffering. It's not going to be, and my wife as well. So if I suffer, my wife will suffer. So I don't want that. Now, to stop giving in to your excuses, what I had to do, I had to put something in it to make it look like, oh, if I keep giving in to my excuses, somebody else, either myself or in this case my wife, is gonna get hurt. Because if I get sick, let's say I get diabetes or hypertension or whatever, and I have to be on all these medications just like her, like, I still have to take care of my wife. If I can't take care of myself, how am I supposed to take care of my wife? That's pretty much what I said to myself. Depending on what your excuse is, if you are able to realize that that's the excuse that's holding you back, then you have to understand that some way, somehow, you're gonna have to break out of it. One of the things that you can do to understand if that particular excuse is holding you back, depending on what it is, you can just write it down and read it, and then ask to yourself, like, is this holding me back? And if the answer is yes, obviously you have to work on the next step, which is how to stop giving in to that particular excuse. Like I said, everybody has different excuses. Everybody has a lot of excuses. I know I have a lot of excuses for everything. Like, if I don't want to do anything, I always say, like, it's because I'm tired. Like, I work so hard, so I don't want to clean the house. So there's little excuses like that, and it's extremely important to know this, because when you find the excuse that's holding you back, like, at least in my case, I feel like I'm able to break out of a bad habit. Giving excuses is bad habit. Once you start breaking out of that bad habit, then, at least in my case, again, I feel like I can try different things that I never thought I could. Like, in this case, I'm losing weight. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to work out a little bit harder. Like, I'm going to work out a little bit harder and see, or not see, and I'm going to get back in shape, because due to all this overindulging, I lost my shape. I'm not in shape anymore. Like, I was walking the dogs and they ran away from me, and I tried to chase them, and I was winded. I'm like, gosh, I'm out of shape. I need to stop eating. So now it is extremely important, like I said, because once you realize what's holding you back and you break out of it, you won't have any excuse but do whatever you're supposed to do. One of the things that I see a lot with spoonies is that we, as spoonies, and I've done this myself now that I'm talking about it, we give a lot of excuses in regards to going to the doctor. And the biggest excuse that I see with spoonies is, why should I go to the doctor when they're just gonna say the same thing as always? There's nothing wrong with me. But you don't know that. That's an excuse. What you should do, or what we should do as spoonies as well, is just go to the doctor. Because what if the doctor is in a different mood this time than the previous time that you went to see it, or him or her, and now you get different information? Like, we need to stop giving into our excuses, because it can be holding you back from getting the proper treatment. It can be holding you back from feeling a little bit better. Like, there's so many things, especially with spoonies. And another thing, this happened to me. This is why I'm talking about it. When you keep giving into your excuses, I don't know if this happens to you, but one of the things that I noticed with me is that it was making me depressed. It was making me depressed because I was like, after I ate a whole bag of Reese's peanut butter cups, I was like, I shouldn't have eaten. You start feeling bad about yourself, right? Like, I started feeling bad about myself. I was like, I shouldn't have eaten that. That is so bad. So I'm like, I'm not gonna eat the rest of the day. So that was also holding me back, because that's not good for you. So there's so many things that as to why this is important, but it's up to you to find the real reason as to why it's important for you to break out of those excuses. And once you're able to break out of those excuses, and you're able to do what you're supposed to do, or what you need to do for yourself, then you might actually feel better, depending on what it is. You might feel better just by stop giving yourself an excuse of not going to physical therapy, not trying to overdo things at home so you can actually rest. Like, I know that my wife gives herself this excuse, like, oh, well, Jordan can take care of the house, so I'm gonna help him, even though I'm gonna be in pain for the rest of the week. So there's so many things. Now I'm gonna leave you with this question. If you want to share your answer, you can send me a message. You can put it on the comments. But the question is, are you letting your excuses holding you back? And I'll leave you with that question today. I want to see your answer, because now you know my answer. My answer is yes. My answer was yes. But I am working on it, like step by step. There's 12 steps on AA. For this, I might have to do 100. So you never know, But that's it for today. That's what I wanted to talk about today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your feedback. I really, really appreciate you guys. Thanks to you, we're growing. Thanks to your feedback, I feel like I'm getting better, which is what matters. And it's all thanks to you. So don't forget to share, like, subscribe. That way we can grow even more. And if you want to share your story, you can actually send it to me at the Spoonie and Caregiver Live at gmail.com. You can post it on Facebook as well. And you can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And I'll leave you like always. Always take care of yourself and have a great day.